Hello and welcome to Clive's Fine Art Studio. Yes, and thank you very much for taking up my invitation to join me here today. As you know, well, I don't know if you know, but I'm doing a collaboration with Jason Bowen.
Hey, welcome, thanks for stopping by.
Yes, now if you haven't checked this channel out, go and check that out. One of his videos are in the iCard, are there? Yes. So pop along there. I've also put his details in the thing below. Now, Jason contacted me a few weeks ago. He said, Clive, would you like to do a collab? And I said, yeah, fine. So he's actually sent me an image, as you can see. This is the image that he sent me, and he said, come on, let's paint this together. And I thought that would be a fantastic idea. So as I progress through the painting, I'm going to talk a little bit about that and the conversation we had as well. And but as you can see, I've got everything set up on my palette in a normal way. I'm going to go through it very, very, very quickly, but all the information you're going to need during the video is going to be there anyway. So I've got some medium mix formula and some liquid clear. I'll talk about that later on. I got some gesso, I got some VANDYKE brown, some burnt umber, some raw sienna, some orange, hooker's green, sap green, a bit of Mars black, some titanium white, CERULEAN blue, and DIAZ purple. And I've just got a selection of brushes. Again, all the information is there. So without further ado, let's get some paint on the canvas. Because I do waffle, Jason. Yes, I do. Yes. Yes, so first thing I'm going to do, I've just grabbed myself a 1-inch square or bright, depending on where in the world you are. I don't know, I get confused with all these things, I certainly do. Now, I've already taken liberty, after looking at the picture that Jason have sent me, and I said to Jason, I don't like green, I don't like landscapes, I'm not a landscape painter. No, I'm not really, no, because I can't, I'm colourblind in green, yes, and I told him this, and look what he sent me. So let's have a bit of fun. Okay, we can work with this. That's not a problem. Okay, so the sky. I quite like that sky. It's got quite a nice bit of colour in it. I'm not going to paint this exactly as it is on the photograph. As Jason says, let's use our artistic skills. So let's do that, shall we? Now, I've already taken the liberty of putting a burnt umber line work onto my canvas, which is 18 by 20, I think. Let me just check. Actually, it's a 24 by 20. So I thought I had it right. Never mind. Okay, so 24 by 20 canvas, and obviously you can see I put some fence posts and things. I've been playing in an idea. Now you've got to do this, and just to basically looking at perspective as well. This is a good thing for perspective, because you can see this track, as you can look, if you look on the actual painting itself, on the drawing itself, or the photograph I should say. It's a photograph, Clive. Yes. If you look at the photograph, you can see how it goes into the distance. So that's a good thing on perspective. And I've also thought about putting some fence posts or something. Artistic license, it certainly is. Now those trees, they could be quite small or they could be big. It all depends how tall you are. So I thought roughly about halfway up that tree is, I don't know, about 4 foot for a fence post. So if you say about halfway up, you bring that down there, and that's where that tree is. That's about 4 foot, and they just get progressively bigger from there. We can play around with them later on. Anyway, sharp Clive, let's get on to the canvas. Now, acrylics are slightly different to oils, where you can go straight in to a pre-gessoed canvas with oil painting. But what I tend to do, and this is where I like acrylics. Now, if you've never tried acrylics before, they are quite difficult to get the grips with. And as you can see, I'm just putting a little bit of gesso. Don't worry about going over your line work, that's not a problem. And if you've never used acrylics before, they do dry quite rapidly, and you need to mist down the canvas. Now, I specifically left this canvas a little bit flippy floppy. I don't know if you can see that. I've done it for a reason, because I want a little bit of give, because I'm going to be doing this with my brush later on, and I don't want it too hard and too stretchy. So I want a little bit of forgiveness there. So that's exactly what I've done. I've prepped this canvas in exactly the same way as I prep every other canvas. I wet it down first, and then I stretched it with a couple of little of the keys in the back, and then just allowed that to dry. And as it dried, it became taut. Yes. And I would say this is a taut canvas, but no, it's still beginning its learning process at the moment. So I haven't taught it anything. Yes. So we're just applying this gesso. That's all it is just gesso, just plain gesso. And for those who have painted with me before know that I make my own gessos. For those that don't, then please check out my iCards, because there are lessons there to show you how to save yourself loads and loads and loads of money. I just use a very fine mist atomizer. It's not a spritzer spray, it's a fine mist atomizer. And the reason we use that with acrylics, and I'm talking about acrylics in this way today for my subscribers to know that Jason Bowen is an oil painting artist. So a lot of his subscribers actually paint in oils and they don't paint in acrylics, even though they want to try it. And I suggest you do try it. One thing I will say is don't worry. I just wanted this canvas to be floppy like this today. Normally I'll paint on a taut canvas. It all depends what type of subject I'm painting. But I wanted this to be a little bit tighter today. I wanted it a bit looser today. Yes. I get confused. I had a stroke several years ago and my brain doesn't always work correctly. So all I've done is I've just put a very thin coat, even coat of gesso onto that. Not too worried about where the trees are. And the atomizer bottle again is a very, very fine atomizer because it doesn't put out too many big droplets of water. So about 12 inches away, and then just give that a little moisture down like that. You could do this with the Bob Ross technique, using a blending white. You can use acrylics. I got blending white and a Clive's liquid clear, which you can use. And if you want to look at any of my Bob Ross type of paintings that that I've done with acrylics, then again please press the iCards. Yes, that might be interesting. And you can now also see there's one behind me there I did, and I work completely in acrylics. Again, into the top corner. Let's get a bit of blue into this sky, and as you would do with the Bob Ross method, you blend in into white. Now this is gesso, so it's going to dry quite rapidly, so you need to keep this workable. Bringing that down, leaving a couple of areas here and there that we want in for our cloud formations. There's no point doing it all with the blue. We've got a darker area there, bringing it across, leaving the pressure off the brush, just taking the pressure off the brush and not pushing so hard on the brush, because it's like this type of pattern. There's a lot of cloud there. I'm not going to copy the sky completely because that's virtually impossible, but I'm going to put a couple of lighter spots here and there like that, and I'm going to build around. Now the thing is with oils, you can play with these for days and days and weeks and weeks and weeks. And I've done a lot of oil painting. I actually done more Bob Ross paintings in oils than I've ever done in acrylics. So it's quite an interesting concept. Let's get a little bit of blue down here. And I don't mind if it's drying a little bit. It's quite warm in the studio today. So let's just get a little bit of colour. Not too worried about that area there because that's so far in the distance it doesn't really matter. I'm just smoothing that through like that. Now I've put a bit of moisture. This is the first bit of moisture I've actually put on my brush. I don't know if you've noticed. Picking up a little bit more blue. I'm just going to put a bit of more blue into the sky here. I want a lovely type of sky. Bringing that down, let's put a bit of moisture down there. And I'm looking at the trees and there's not a lot of blue actually showing. There's not a lot of sky. You can't actually see a lot of sky through these trees. So I'm just going to do a little bit here and there. A little bit more moisture. I just want to moisten that down a little bit more. And you could put a sky in quite rapidly with this method. Now the good thing is about acrylics is if I'm not too 100% happy with this sky when I finish with it, I can put a glaze over it or a wash. That's a very thin paint. But you've got to be careful when you're over thinning acrylics, because there's a rule of a 45%. You should not thin acrylics more than 45% with water, because the molecular bonds tend to they don't like being underbound. Basically, they tend to want to hold hands all the way through, and if they can't hold hands, they get upset. And there's divorces and everything with them, so they get really upset. So what I've done is I've come up with this little formula, and it's called the medium mix formula. There you go. And all these products are for sale on my website, but I'm not here to just promote that today. I just wanted to say that it's got a lot of resin and stuff and other things in it. And what it does, I use that, and I can thin that down up to about 45% with water. So I add 45% water to that, whatever amount that is, and then I just use that. I don't go into water, and that's where the problems actually seep in, because the archival properties of acrylics are excellent if you've painted with them correctly, but you don't want 6 months down the line to find out that your paint is flaking off your canvas. It's been known to happen. It's been known to happen. There you go. Nice. I got a little blending brush here, and this is just a natural pony hair brush. There you go, natural pony hair brush. And again, I'm going to very lightly go over. So if you've done some Bob Ross painting, give this a whack. Why not? You've got nothing to lose, everything to gain. All you got is you're losing the workability of oils, because you can work with Bob Ross painting, and following Jason as well. And with oils, you can just play with it for days and days and days. Acrylics force you to work a little bit faster, but with a couple of the products that I've developed, the blending white and that, it just allows the paint to stay, what we say in acrylics is allows the paint to stay open. And I'm just picking that air off there. These are natural bristle brushes, and they do tend to shed a bit. Oh no, and the thing for it, I have to use my nail. So they do tend to shed a bit, but that's fine. So yeah, I'm quite happy with that so far. Now, what I'm going to do with that now is I'm going to dry that off with a hairdryer. Now, this is something you don't do in oils, isn't it? Yes, I can force dry this, and I can start moving into the cloud. So I'm just going to do that. And I always suggest you test the camera with the canvas with the back of your finger, because if you do that, you'll have fingerprints everywhere, and there's little grease spots there. Yes, and you don't want those all over your canvas, because the acrylic paint doesn't like anything greasy or shiny. I'm going to take my hat off because it's getting quite warm in here. Okay, right. I need a brush. I got a small 1/2 inch square, and I've got a little fan brush. That looks like a number 3. So I'm thinking about clouds now, and I'm going to go into some titanium white, and I'm going to get a piece of titanium white by there, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get a touch of Van Dyke brown to that. There you go, maybe a bit more than that, not too much. Now acrylics, it's fair to say acrylics dry at least 2 shades darker. So when you're playing with acrylics, this is why I get problems with greens. Now looking at the trees, there's so many different types of shades of green there that my colour blindness is that I can't differentiate between a light green, a medium green, and a dark green, and if there's all different types of greens in between that, all I can see is green. There's a big mass of green. So not very good. If that's why I couldn't join the army, because I couldn't see anybody in camouflage. I mean, you're not supposed to see them in camouflage anyway, but if you could see them, I wouldn't see them anyway. So I mixed a bit of Van Dyke brown with the white. I'm just taking off the excess with a little bit of kitchen roll. There you go. I'm just taking a bit of that off. I don't want it too thick. I can always pick up off here if I wanted to. If I wanted to pick up off there, I could. And I'm just looking at the cloud formation, and I don't know, I'm just going to go in and I'm just going to scrub in some shapes like this anywhere. There's quite a lot of cloud pattern in there. Now I'm not going to kill all those little white areas as well, because they can be distant backgroundy type of things. So all I'm going to do is just chucking in a little bit of colour here and there like that, just a little bit of a shade. I like Vandyke brown for the sky. I like Vandyke brown, and if you have a look at a couple of the Bob Ross style paintings that I've done, you'll see that I use Vandyke brown a lot. And I just like the colour. I think it's a wonderful colour. Now, by leaving that area white there, which was just the gesso that I missed after when I put the blue over it, so I missed little patches. It looks like those are in the distance. Can you see that? I hope you can see that. Okay, so I just moved the one. I've just got the camera focused in on you now. As you can see, it just looks like there's distantly clouds now. So you've done all that work on the sky, and you haven't had to work hard. Now all you're doing is just putting in a little bit of clouds in the midground or foreground of the sky, if you want to call it a foreground or midground. But you can just put a few shadows in here and there like that. And what we're going to do, we're going to be coming in a minute and just highlighting all those. And I'm just looking at the sky. It's quite full of clouds, so let's get a little bit of denser, thicker type of shadowy cloud formations there. It's not different. If you can paint in oils, you can paint in acrylics. It's easy. If you can paint in acrylics, you can paint in oils. It's easy. You just got to get used to using the different mediums of, not so much the mediums, but the medium of what is oils or what is acrylics. If you can get used to the drying times of acrylics and knowing how to thin these things down, then, and working with them, it's the drying time is the killer with acrylics. But it takes a little while, but you get used to them, and you can play with these like oils. You can put stuff in these things, retarders and stuff, and you can get these working exactly the same as oils. Now the reason I went over from oils to acrylics is because I had respiratory problems and dermatitis and all the thinners and stuff, and I know Jason actually uses water soluble oils. So he uses water to thin his oil paints down. Now I understand that all that is basically is some sort of it's like a washing up liquidy type of stuff they actually put in to the paint, which allows the water to bond with the oils. I think something like that. It doesn't matter. It's just that you can still mix all the thinning agents, you know, the turpentines and stuff like that with them if you wanted to, but once you've done that, you can't use water. So if you're just using water to thin them, then I don't know, Jason will let me know if I'm wrong on that, but what the understanding I have is that that's how it works. So, but I'm quite happy just working my magic with acrylics. It's taken a long time, it certainly is. Well, look, it's not a bad sky, I don't think. Let's put a little bit more. Let's put a bit more cloud formations in there like that. As I said, this is quite a big cloud-filled sky, and we can come in there 1 minute and start putting some highlights in on top of those. And you can use a fan brush for this as well. So let's just have a look down there. Let's put a few more. Let's get a few more areas here like that. What we can do with these in a minute, I'll show you a little trick. I can know, because I'm looking at that background and it's looking a little bit bluer down there. It could be mountains or something, I don't know. Perhaps you could put some foothills or something. It looks like a lane that I drove down the other day when I was with my window cleaning round. It does, yes. So washing a brush, and let's get the hairdryer on that again. And that's all it is layer process. It's a layer process, acrylics. It's doing layers, drying them off, doing layers, drying them off, and that way you can do a painting very, very quickly. So. Okay, so let's get, in this case, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to pick up a small little filbert. There you go. And now I'm just going to go straight into some plain titanium white. So let's put our highlights on these clouds. So let's look at our photograph. So it looks like all the clouds are highlighted more on the right hand side. So let's just put a little bit of highlights in these clouds like this, and be free and loose with this. Don't kill all those shadows you've already done. You just want to pick up some nice little fluffy highlights really, and that's all you got to do is just go in very, very loosely like this, and you don't want to do too much at once. What you need at this point is another blending brush, and I got a small one. There you go. And I'm just going to fluff up those edges because I don't want them to be too sharp. All I want is a little bit of highlight on these clouds to show, and that's all you're doing, just highlighting. Now a lot of my subscribers struggle really badly with clouds, but all you've got to do is just be loose like this and allow the brush to actually do the work for you. And again, don't do too many at once, and then you can fluff these up. Basically all you're doing is just rubbing in. I'm just taking off those sharp edges. I'm just making them look a little bit fluffy, and you can always go and rework a couple if you want, get a little bit of depth in there. And the key to this is to keep looking back, keep standing back from it and coming forward, because if you sit in there like this, like what we tend to do is we get a little bit distance blind. I call it distance blind because you're working so much on fine detail really that you don't need to put a lot of detail into these things, and skies should really paint themselves. They should really look like a sky, because unless you're doing a cloud study and you want to get all that accuracy of wispy bits and things and in there, really speaking, you don't need to spend a lot of time on the sky. You don't. You can stand back. 6 foot is the optimum distance to view a painting, and most of the time if I was doing a commission, I'd stand up and I'd be walking back and forth. So it's very rare. The only time I actually sit down to paint is when I'm doing videos. Yes, and a lot of artists are exactly the same thing. And I was telling Jason the other day that the reason I did the bird number wash or the Van Dyke Brown drawing was I started doing the painting. I planned it all out and everything, which I was going to video, and I looked down and my feet are wet, and I thought, why are my feet wet? Because I checked my pails. So I got 2 pails. I got a pail with warm water in it, a pail with cold water in it, and that's how I clean my brushes. I'll show you in a minute. And I thought, my feet are wet, and I looked at the back of my studio, because I got a summer house. My studio is actually a summer house, and which I had built in the garden, and we've had so much rain lately that it's developed a really nasty leak. So I've basically had to find out where the leak was, and stripped all my studio apart, and I thought, well, I just will do a full spring clean and a painting job, and I did everything to it now. So so I was a bit later than I wanted to be with this, but there we are, we're here now. And then just play around with these clouds and stand back and have a look. There you go. Just put a little bit of highlight on this one. It'll be quite loose. I'll just brush it in like that, easy. Sometimes the angle you've got to sit at to do a painting is absolutely terrible, because I'm sitting a little bit further back. If I was going to sit and paint, I would rather sit straight in front of it, but sometimes it's quite difficult to try and get the angle on these cameras. You can see I got this hello camera 1, hello camera 2, hello camera 3, hello camera 4. I've got 4 cameras set up at the moment. It's quite hard, but it's fun. It's fun. I'm talking too much again as usual, so I worry about that bit of sky later on. Don't worry about that. Okay, so let's get a little bit of the Ceylon blue on your brush and just put a bit here and there, and then you just in case we want to pick up a little bit of sky later on. We could put a little bit there maybe. So look, bring a bit of white in there like that. There we go. Don't have to fuss too much. I know it looks strange, but we'll get there. Always do. Yes. Right, I'm not going to do any more to that sky for the moment, because I want that to dry. So I'm going to clean my brushes. Let me show you how I do that. I got 2 pails, as I said. This is the pail I got with my warm water in. So it's important that you don't let the acrylic paint dry in these, especially up to the ferrule, because you're going to be in major problems then. And I just got some baby household soap. It's like Dove. If you live in the UK, you know what Dove is. And I rub that through a little bit of soap like that. Nice warm water. Give it a wipe. Go straight into some clean water, just to make sure there's no pigment coming out of it. And I just give it a quick little wipe like that, and that's all nice and jubbly. There we go. And that goes back in my little tray like that. So I'm going to dry the canvas off now, and just to make sure, because I want to put the background in for the trees. Okay, so as I was drying that, I'm looking at the reference photograph, and I thought I'm going to put a couple of foothills in there, and I'm going to use a little bit of sap green. I'm just going to bring a little bit of sap green, going to bring a little bit of white to it, like that. I'm just going to lighten that down. And I'm just going to look, I want it a bit bluer than that, so I'm going to add a little bit of blue to it. I'm going to cool that down, make it more of a blue-green. There we are. I'm not too fussy. I don't worry about mixing colours and stuff. I just get on with it. Yes. Yeah, that'll be okay. That looks maybe a little bit lighter, maybe. Let's put a little bit of white. I want to lighten that right up. Let's have a look at that. That's a little bit better. You're not going to see much of this, so a little bit of contrast here and there, just because I live in Wales and it's quite hilly around here, so we could put in a bit of a higher slope there, like that maybe. There we are. And I'm just going to put that straight across like that. And let's maybe put a bit more blue to that now. That should be okay. Now, I was looking at the trees, and those 2 trees are going to be a lot lighter than these trees here. Yes, they are. Okay, so I need to get a little, let's see how this is my little, this is a natural bristle brush. It's a natural bristle brush, see? Okay, now I acquired this one quite a while ago, and I haven't found another one since. There's lovely trees. And I want to get, so I'm going to go I'm going to go into some Hooker's green, straight into some Hooker's green, because I don't want it too dark, because you'll notice when I do these trees are going to be a lot darker. So I'm just going to go in with my Hooker's green and just develop a tree-like pattern like this. There you go. Very, very lightly with this brush, and there's another little group of tree-like things there. There we go. I hate green. I really do. But doing YouTube videos has made me do things that I'm really uncomfortable with. I'm a pet portrait artist. I am not a landscape artist. And some of you will be saying, yeah, I can see that. But it's actually made me better at what I do. So if you think this is bad, you should have seen my earlier attempts. Because Clive doesn't have happy accidents. No, he has major disasters, darling. There you go. Now we got a trick in acrylics. Now, if I thought that for a minute that was a little bit too dark or too light, then we can knock these things back, which I tend to do sometimes because of my problems with green. Is I do tend to put washes over things to knock them back or even darken them in some cases, and that's what I tend to do. And I was going to get a tiny touch of black just to darken that one edge there like that. I need to let that dry now. Now I'm going to get some Hooker's green, but there. I'm going to bring a bit of DIAZ purple. This is where the DIAZ purple comes in. Very, very strong colour. You mix a little bit of DIAZ purple with that. A little bit of burnt umber. A little bit of raw sienna. You might be thinking that's quite a strange mixture. But it is. But I want a nice dark colour. And now I'm just going to go in and I'm just going to put my what was that? I don't know. This is 2 trees by here, so I've got to be careful what I'm doing. I've got to leave room for
Hey, welcome, thanks
a
for
little bit of
stopping
sky
by.
coming through.
It's time to learn with our friend Clive. So grab your brush, have a great time. And don't forget to click subscribe. Visit Clive.
And don't be afraid to use reference photographs if you want to use reference photographs, because I don't know about you, but when I paint a tree, they all look the same. Because I paint a tree how I see a tree in my mind, and that's not necessarily how a tree looks. And that goes with anything really. So use a reference. It's not cheating. And as I've seen Jason numerous number of videos that Jason have done, and brilliant artist, and I highly recommend you go along and check out his channel. And if you're on Jason's channel, I ask you if you would like to come and have a look at my channel and try out a few of my lessons, and I'm sure that between us we can increase the knowledge of acrylics and oils alike. Yes, and that's our mission. It is. So let's get a bit more Hooker's green, but there, let's get a little bit of DIAZ purple, and let's get a little bit of burnt umber, Let's get a bit of raw sienna. There you go. A little bit more. Once you start making these colours up, you'll get to know roughly. And I'm putting that onto my little bit of kitchen paper, because if I don't want my brush to be overloaded, but whatever excess paint I've got goes on there, and what I'll do a little bit and I'll come back to this. So there's a tree down here now. It comes out in front of that one. But we'll do that in a minute, because I want to put some highlights on that, so I don't want to do that too quick. So let's just darken that up. There's a little bit more Hooker's green in that, is a little bit too on the purple side. Doesn't matter. And let's just block this in. It's going to look like a big gooey mess in a minute, but that's not what we are worried about. Because it's not this that's going to set it off, it's the highlights. I don't want to come down here because I haven't done anything down here yet, because we've got to put. So all I'm doing is just blocking in with my dark colour, leaving a little bit of light coming through. I don't want to kill all the canvas. We got a stringy one come in there like that, and another little stringy one there like that, and then we got a bit of a funny old one come in there like that, and then it comes back around. So if you haven't painted trees before, then just follow your reference photograph as best you can. There you go. You want to add to a sharp point, spread it onto your palette, get it to a nice sharp edge, and then you can do all these type of things with it. Like that. See? Just get in and know your brush. What can your brush do for you? What can your brush do for you? Your brush is an extension of your arm. Your brush is an extension of your mind. The colour is what you perceive it to be. So use them to their best advantage. Use them. Don't just, well, I can get that to a nice sharp edge that way if I wanted to. There we are. And then just get them in there. It doesn't matter. This is just a funny old tree. He's just growing away. There you are. And let's just get that. That's my next door neighbour's dog barking. And it's quite dark here, so this is really in shadow. So I can afford to actually brush that in now, like this. This is so dense. And it's not, this is just your background colour, this is your base, this is your shadows, your darks. That's what we're putting in here now, is we're concentrating on that. Have you noticed I've only used a little bit of water again. You know, I just want to thin that down because it's starting to dry a little bit on me. And what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to get a mister bottle and just give your paints a little squirt like that. I'm using a wet palette. That's basically just kitchen roll and some baking paper or parchment paper on top of it, which has been pre-wetted or pre-soaked. Pre-wetted, Jason. Pre-wetted, that's Welsh. Pre-soaked. Oh, do I need to tell myself a mischief for that then? Pre-wetted, yeah, so pre-wetted it. So pre-soak that, and then you know, tip out any moisture in it. Don't let it full of water because your paints just slop about. So you need a damp paper underneath, and then put the parchment paper or baking paper on top, and that comes with a lid, and you know, it keeps your paints all nice and moist, because unlike oils, acrylics air dry. Yes, for those who didn't know. Okay, so all I'm going to do now is I'm looking at the let's look at this base colour now. I'm going to get myself a scrubby brush. I need a scrubby brush for this. I certainly do. So I've just picked up I picked up an 1/2 inch shader. I think that'll do me. I don't think it will do me. And I'm looking at this and I want maybe some raw sienna. I'm going to put a bit of burnt umber with that. Let's have a look. Yeah, that's okay. Let's put a bit of that there. Not too worried about the tree. All I'm doing is just putting in some colour. Bring a bit of moisture to that. A bit more kitchen on. This is called blocking in. This is called blocking in with colour. Now, I don't know, you don't do this normally very often with oils. Oils is more of a direct type of painting method. Oh, well, it was when I used to do it, so I don't know. But what we tend to do, we'll put a base colour in, and let's bring a little bit of, let me have a look, let's put a little bit of DIAZ and purple to that. There you go, let's just darken that up a touch. Bit more. DIAZ and purple, very strong pigment. Be very, very careful when you're using DIAZ and purple. And the thing is, I think the light is coming this way, so we've got a good chance of putting some shadows in here as well, which is really going to set this painting off. And we mustn't forget we got our fence posts there, we can put them back in. So I'm just going to put this lovely colour. It's a lovely colour, that is. Oh, you use a bigger brush, but I like to use in small brushes. That's just my thing. So bringing up that tone in now, I got a little bit of VANDYKE brown on my brush. I'm going to darken this edge up with a little bit of VANDYKE brown, like that. And I'm looking at that, and that's more sienna. Let's put a bit of raw sienna there. Let's get a bit more orange to it. I want it more of an orangey type of colour. Oh, let's have a look. Let's sweep that down then like that. Could be a bit darker actually, couldn't it? Let's get a bit of this greeny mix we used. This is the dark colour we used for the trees. Look, I'm going to chuck a bit of that in there. Let's see. That's a bit more muddy. They say that mixing all these colours together you get mud. Yes, but sometimes, guess what? You want mud. So mix some mud. Don't get stressed. There's no point getting stressed. Let's add a little bit more DIAZ and purple to that. I want this a bit of red, orange, bit of VANDYKE. No, what I say, burned umber in there. That's it. Let's get that muddy colour. It's got a bit of a it's laying out that way a bit. Let's take that in that way, and let's get a little bit of orange, and let's just bring that way like that. I'll just shape that in a minute. Just get that edge, just to get it to look like something. I'm going to get some. I got some Ochre's green. Again. Let's get that around like that. trying to maintain this perspective is not as easy as it looks, and it's certainly not as easy as it looks from my side of it. I've just picked up a bit of white just to give myself an idea where this is going to be, like that. There you go. Touch of water, and this is just a block in colour, mind. This is just blocking in. This is just giving me a little bit of shape, a little bit of form here and there where I need it. And I'm just looking at, that's going to be lighter there. So let me just clean my brush. I told him I don't have happy accents. Major disasters. No, what have you done? Don't worry about it. Acrylics are very forgiving. We can recover any mistake. So I don't worry about things like that. That's not what you want to worry about. You want to worry about more about getting this. We've got a little bit of happy green coming in here now. Oh yeah, a bit of sappy green coming in. You want to worry more about getting perspectives and stuff right first. I can't wait to see Jason. Jason, I can't wait to see your painting. No. If you've only just clicked on, or you've been flicking through or something, Jason Bowen, yes, he's actually given me a challenge to paint this, and I gotta thank him from the bottom of my heart, wholeheartedly. Yes. I'm gonna put a bit of orange in there. Thank you, Jason. I gotta be honest with you, this is a really fun painting. But what I'm looking forward to is the painting you were going to do for me. Yes, because I'm going to give you a painting shortly. And then that's my challenge to you. So have a bit of fun with it. As that'll be the next one we do. Yes, Clive decides to pick. And I think that's only fair. And I think the subscribers would agree with me, wouldn't you? Yes. If you want me to challenge Jason, then leave a comment in the comment box below in a normal way. And then I'm sure that I can come up with something that we can both do. There you go. I know it looks a little bit bloof at the moment, but that's just the nature of what it is. So I'm picking up a little bit of white. I want to lighten this colour a little bit, and I want to come down here like that. I'm using a bit of water, a bit of my medium mix flow improver now, and I'm just going to continue to block this in.
Hey, welcome, thanks for stopping by. It's time to learn with our friend Clive. So grab your brush, have a great time. And don't forget to click subscribe. Visit clive5art.co.uk.
Don't normally paint that fast, so yeah, sorry I had speeded that up a little bit for you, because it's just basically blocking in, and all you're doing is just putting undertone colours in place now. And like oils, this is what you've got to do with acrylics. Now before I let that dry, I'm going to go find myself a nice little detail brush. I'm going to get a little bit of Mars black, I'm going to get some VANDYKE brown, and a little bit of, just a touch on the edge of my brush, just a little bit of DIAZ and purple, and I'm just going to thin my paint down a little bit like that. I'm pulling my brush to a thin point. There you go. And then I'm going to put in some little tree trunks, and I'm following roughly what I can see there, like that. Again, just blocking in this colour. You're not going to see much of the base of these trees at all, really. And this one has got a bit of an old notch on him, like that, by the looks of him. And I tell you what I do is I also print out some black and white as well. And this is the only one I've actually painted out in this one, because using it that way you can see a lot of tonal differences. You can definitely see the highlights of the trees. You can definitely see they're lighter than those, and you know, just the tonal part of that is enough to give you that little bit of an edge. Let's just get that branch in there like that. He comes down this big trunk. I like to print out black and white reference. I go by that a lot sometimes. Well, most of the time, actually. I shouldn't say sometimes, should I? That's a lie. Most of the time, that's what I'll do. It's a bit old, trunky old tree, that one. And he's got a nice limb that comes out like that. There you go. And we can darken that up later on. And this one has got a major disaster. We'll paint him out in a minute. Maybe that'll do. It doesn't look too bad, does it? That'll be alright. It's just a funny old looking tree. You know, a bit like me. I'm a funny old looking bloke. That'll do. Doesn't matter. If anybody says that doesn't look quite right, yes, because I wanted to draw your eye to that part of the painting. You are the artist. You can do whatever you want to do. This is your world. It certainly is. You can't see the foots, so it doesn't really matter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's okay. 7 isn't it? 1, 2, 3, 4. You should always have an odd number, really, but let's put a few things like that. Let's just put a little bit of a let's extend him a little bit more there. Let's make him a bit. He's an old boy, this one, a bit like me. I'm as happy as a tree. There you go. Block out of colour. That's all it is now. What I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to go and make myself a cup of tea and let this dry naturally. Because that's what Clive does. Clive enjoys his cup of tea, yes, and it's Yorkshire tea. And one of my subscribers sent me quite a lot of them, a lot of tea bags. So I got to make my way through them. So yes, just going to let that dry naturally, and I'm going to make myself a cup of tea. I should be back like that. I'm back. That was quick, wasn't it? Look, I got my cup of tea just to prove it. I'm an artist, so keep calm. Yes. Now, I'm going to try and show you as many different ways that I can think of in one painting to actually try and impress on you how brilliant acrylics are. And if you're already an oil painter, then you might have tried acrylics and thought, and thrown them through the door like I have on many occasions, or just don't like them. So I'm hoping to convert a few people into acrylics, and just give them a try. I'm getting all wrapped up in my cables here. Now, the background there, you might be thinking, it's a little bit dark, Clive, blah blah blah, and you know, well, I decided that I was going to do that anyway. All right, I wanted to show you, just making sure my camera's on. I wanted to show you that you can recover that, and this is a good thing with acrylics. I got a little. This is a little bowl, which just acquired from a charity shop. It doesn't matter. You can use whatever you want to use, a cup and mug or whatever. And I'm going to add a little bit of water to that. Oh no, a couple of dessert spoons maybe. Now I want to introduce to my palette, I'm just going to put that there. I want to introduce to my palette some zinc mixing white. Now this is something I don't normally do, and as I reveal the paints that I actually use. Now I like Dale and Roney paints, okay, and this particular happens to be a System 3 part of it, but they're mid-range, and they're quite a nice, I wouldn't say they were a thin paint, they're more of a heavy body paint, and I quite like a heavy body paint. Acrylics, a little bit like oils. Now Bob Ross used to use a very thick, stodgy paint. In fact, you could squeeze a tube like that and it would stick up. So that's what was best for his methods. And it's the same with oils. Acrylics are exactly the same. It all depends on how you like. Some people, some artists I know like working with the thinner type of acrylics, where a lot of artists like a thicker type, and I even like even more of a thicker, a really, really heavy duty paint, stodgy paint. So I actually thicken it up myself. But we're not going to cross that bridge today. But you can do that. So anyway, this is zinc mixing white. So I'm going to put a little bit of zinc mixing white into my bowl like that, and then I'm going to mix that up. Now I'm just going to use this fan brush because it just happens to be lying there. I'm just going to mix that in with the water like that, trying to get all those lumps out. You want this like a wash. That's all this is a very thin acrylic paint. You can thin your paints like this if you want to use them as watercolors, and you can use acrylics like a watercolor paint because it is basically a watercolor paint. The only difference is it's not fugitive. That means it doesn't fade, and it mixes well when it's wet, but once it's dry it doesn't. So with watercolors, you'll find if you put a yellow on top of a blue that's already dried with watercolors and conventional watercolors, you'll find it will reactivate and go green, whereas acrylics don't do that because it's plastic. That's all it is. Yes. Now I'm picking up a 1-inch short flat. Now I'm going straight into this mixture like that, and I'm going to go all over my entire painting. Now this is like a scumble type of method, and I use this a lot if I was doing a portraiture or something like that, and just to mute down those colours so they're not looking so harsh. And I'm going to go all over the entire canvas. Now you've got to make sure that the canvas is really, really dry, because occasionally I've done this and I've gone through green and things and it's just gone all over my sky. That's not what you want. You've got to make sure this canvas is so dry, otherwise you're not going to get the effect you want. Now I put a very thin wash all over my sky, which is basically muted down that sky even more. I'm just going to pick up a little bit of kitchen roll, and I'm just going to tap off my trees like that, because I want that dark colour to be prominent. And this is why I've left the canvas floppy, because I want to give a little bit of a boost to the canvas. Yes. Okay, so now I want to make a little bit of a thicker paint. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a little bit more of my zinc mixing white to the side of my tray like that, and I'm just going to bring that in with my brush. Can you see what I'm doing? Bring that in with my brush like that. So it's a very, it's a thicker wash then, that's all it is, a thicker wash. Got more viscosity, darling. And I'm going to go over those area, I'm going to go over that area there, taking those trees down. And I'm taking that right back like that. And then I'm getting another bit of kitchen roll. I go through a lot of kitchen roll. And then we'll get the hairdryer on that. I use the hairdryer more than times than my wife. So I don't know if you can see, you see on camera too? Can you see? Already I've given it a distance without trying too hard, which is the fun part of acrylics, that you can play around. This is an old oil technique. This is a technique that you can do with, it's called scrumbling. It's a very old technique, isn't it? When you do a grisaille painting and then you can go over it with a very thin wash, exactly like this, or a glaze, and then that'll mute down the colours, and then you build them up again, you mute them down, you build them up, and that way you can do a fantastic grisaille painting. Yes, I will be doing one soon, so keep an eye out for that one. Yes, that's something you want to keep an eye out for. So I'm just going to mute down that area once more with a little bit of a thicker mix until I get the effect that I'm looking for. And if you're doing trees or the such like that, don't be afraid just to get a blending brush when you've done that, and you can mute that in and blend it in like that and smooth that colour in. You can use this for mist. You can do a very similar thing with mist. If you're doing a waterfall or something like that and you wanted to create that mist effect that you could get with oils, you could do this with this type of method. Also, you can use your brush like that. You can use a deer foot. I've got one here somewhere. It's quite expensive. That's why they call it a deer foot. So you can mute down. There's a quite big lump of white paint there. I'll have to recover that now. But you can mute down that, and then we can go in there later on. We can put a couple more little highlights in there, and that's another little method for you. So we've knocked down that background sufficiently enough now, so it looks like there's some foothills going on there, and you play around with that until you get the effect you were looking for, and you can mute down your sky and you can get this lovely formation looking quite natural actually. Yes. Okay, so I'm just going to hit that with a hairdryer now and make sure this is really dry before we take it on to the next stage. Okay, so that's nice and dry. Always check with the back of your hand. So as you can see, I hope you can see that it's actually pushed that right back into the background there now. And I'm going to leave the trees for the moment. I want to concentrate a little bit here. It looks quite orange, and it looks like a wheat field or something. So I thought, yes, it looks like a wheat field. What I want to do is just try and get some underlining colour. Now I've got a little rake brush, not a rake brush, it's actually a fan brush, but it's all battered and torn. There we are, all battered and torn and knocked about, and I've chopped and chipped this thing with the little scissors, and it's great for putting like water effects and stuff. So I'm going to try that and see what happens. Now I'm looking at this, it looks a little bit more orangey in the background, so I'm going to just get a little bit of that orange there like that. I'm going to mix a little bit of white with it. I want to lighten it up. I want a nice light orange look about it. taking the excess off, and all I'm going is I'm just going to go like this. I'm just pulling down like that, just trying to get some effect in there. I know it looks a bit drastic at the moment, but trust me, this is going to work fine. Just bring a little bit of that down like that. And I got a little bit, have I got? No, it's more yellowy that side. This is definitely looks like a cornfield to me. And I go straight into that raw sienna and orange mix. I'm going to tap that straight onto my kitchen paper. Nope, not dark enough. That's better. And what I'm doing now is I'm just very, very lightly putting a little bit of contrast in like that, because that's so far away you're not going to see it much of it when I put the other bits in anyway. So I'm just going to wash my brush. I'm going to do the same thing now to the other side, and that's a little bit more on the yellow side, isn't it? It looks a bit creamy, so I'm going to go, let's see if I can reduce that colour even further. Yeah, I'm not going to put any orange out, that'll be fine like that. Let's put a bit of VANDYKE brown to it. There's a hair. I'm going bald. I noticed on the overhead camera one day I was going bald, and I got all these hairs just coming out of my brush here. There we go. Right, let's do. Let's go here. I'm just making sure I'm not in focus. I'm just picking up some very light marks there, like that. Now I'm going to go into slightly darker colour, and again I'm going to go You will get the gist of it. 1 second. Now I want to go into some burnt umber now. I'm looking at that grass. I'm just. It's not grass. It's corn. It's wheat sheaves of wheat basically. Trying to get this. What I'm doing now is I'm putting that's like the undercolour. This is all I'm doing here is basically building up a bit of undercolour. I'm going into a little bit of VANDYKE brown now. So just want to change that colour, darken our colour up a bit. There you go. Go back into that colour. Could you hear the rain here tonight? It's terrible. I actually noticed that I went out around behind the studio earlier. I couldn't understand where all this water was coming in from, but what it is, I put a water-based paint on the outside of the my light just dropped on the outside of the studio walls, because it's a summer house at the end of the day, and we've had so much rain, and it's basically what's happened is we've had so much rain it's actually washed the paint off the wood, so that's why it's been coming in. It certainly has. Right, let's put some darker streaks up with this. And just take your time, take your time. You've got more time than I have, but I'm just trying to get some shapes in here. A little bit of Vandyke brown. I want to darken this edge. And just carry on putting this undercolour in, because we'll play a little bit more with the pockets of light, because this is just the shadow parts of what I can see at the moment. And all I'm doing with the brush is I'm putting and flicking up like that very, very quickly. And you can see I'm starting to develop some shadows and that. There's a bit of a lighter grass bank here. Now I can pull that out by scribbling across like that. You can pull that out a bit. And this is going to be lighter there than there. And we got this bit of a shadow area coming in across this grass. What I want to do now is I'm going to get my my little, this is another fan brush actually. I'm going to get this now, and I'm going to go into some of that white orangey raw sienna type of colour, and I'm just going to pull back with my finger like this and try and get some marks on there. That's not flicking as I wanted. It's okay. So we need to get a stiffer brush. Okay, so I found this is a stiffer brush. This is basically a fan brush, but I've actually cut it down again and been cannibalizing my brushes. So I've used this in another lesson. So I'm just going to go straight into some Vandyke brown by there. That's better. I'm just going to flick in some marks, a bit of white, and I'm just going to chuck in little bits of gravel, small stones, like that. And put that in the water. We can play with that in a second. I'm just going to pick up a little detail brush, and I'm just going to dot and dab a couple of biggest stones. Pebbles, I was going to say pebbles, but I see pebbles, stony pebbles, stones and pebbles. Okay. Now we need to have a look at this. Let's go back into our brush, making sure that it's nice and dry. And now I'm going to go into some hooker's green. Straight into some hooker's green. I'm going to maybe add a little bit of black to it. I'm just going to darken that hooker's green up on the corner there with a touch of black. There we go. And again, exactly the same thing. Bring in some of this green in exactly the same way. This is quite long, this grass, and as it comes down here we can actually push on down like this. and just have fun, just relax, have fun. It's all about the process and finding out how brushes work, and you'll have so much fun when you're doing paintings like this. Now this is a challenge. This is not something that I would have done and picked for myself. It's certainly not. It's not because it's difficult. It's hard. I'm not saying it's not hard, but you're actually going through the process I'm going through. This in some of my Bob Ross style paintings, you've seen that I'll have a go. I'll paint it first before I come to canvas, so I've got a really good idea what I'm doing. Paintings such as this, and when I actually show you the beginning, say this is what we're painting today, that's actually filmed at the end of the painting session. But it looks as if that's what I was going to do. So I don't always paint my paintings, but in some instances, especially with the Bob Ross techniques, I've got to at least give myself a head start and know if what I want to do can be done. And that's what I tend to do with those type of paintings. But this is just off the cuff, as I call it, off the cuff. This is just me sitting here painting. And as Jason said, we've developed a bit of a rapport over the last few weeks. And as Jason said, this is real. This is real. You see all the we warts and all, whatever mistakes we make, you see, and that's good, because you get a chance to learn at the same time as we're learning, because it's not always rosy. It's not, and we try our best to recover certain things, and some things we can't recover. And it's all about layer painting, basically. That's all we're doing, is developing layers and layers and layers. How are we looking on this camera? Let's have a look. Let's take that down a touch. There we go. Hope you can see that okay. I'm going back into our little brush now, in which we've done this dark colour, and if I remember rightly, we used some Hooker's green, didn't we? Hooker's green, bit of burnt umber, bit of raw sienna, a little bit of DIAZ in purple to that, and now let's lighten that down, and just a touch of white to it now. So going down a shade, let's try that out. So you can see, you should be able to see there's a very, very subtle difference. I'm not bothered about these trees at the moment. I'm going to be looking at these trees. So I'm going to be putting in where I think we're going to need to brighten up these trees a touch. Now I'm leaving pockets of dark in place. And this is the first highlight colour. I'm going to be working on those trunks again shortly. Well, we know the light is coming from this direction, so we need to build up the green. We've got some bits of green showing there along that edge, and there's a little bit of green showing out there. That is in shadow, in dark, in dark. It certainly is. Just put a little bit of colour in. There you go. Just here and there, trying to maintain some of that dark there. There's a nice big area there. And let's concentrate over here now. Let's put a bit of colour in here. There you go. That's all we need to do about that for the moment. So that's, we've put the undercolour in, and now this is the first highlight colour of a tree. And you can just about see the green in there. And I'm just going to wipe my brush. I'm not going to wash it, I'm just going to wipe my brush. I'm just taking the excess off my brush, and I'm going to go back into this tree here now, because this was a little bit lighter, wasn't it? So we need to just freshen that tree up a touch, and a little bit more there, just freshen it up. I'm going to go into a bit of sap green, taking the excess off. This is important sometimes when you're doing this type of thing. It's important to take some paint off your brush. It's not quite bright enough, so we need to sparkle that up. I'm going to go touch of white and then sparkle it up a bit, just to give it a little bit of brightness. Don't be afraid. With greens, I struggle with green. This is a really complicated painting just for me. I will admit that I am struggling with this part here, and I'm going to be struggling with these. That, I've tried to cut out as much green as I possibly can, and Jason knows exactly what I'm saying. And I am trying to limit the amount of green I'm actually doing, because it can get a little bit hard for me because I'm colourblind. But what I'm going to do is try and bring those trees to life like that. Now I know that my green is going to darken, so I don't mind going a little bit lighter in some parts of that, because I know that, as I said, I'm just going to go into a bit of darker green, Hooker's green. I like the difference, but you can see Hooker's green is quite a dark green, where sap green has got a light green. And I like that difference. Now I normally make my own greens by mixing a cadmium yellow and a Mars black, and I got more control. I can see the colours better with that combination. But there we are. We just put a little bit of colour here and there just to break those trees up. And I'm expecting this to be quite a lengthy painting, so, because there's a lot of detailing work in this. Thank you, Jason. Right, now I'm going to dry that off again with a hairdryer. I told you I use this more times than my wife. So I'm going to dry this off, and we'll get back to it. Got a couple of little paint splatters here, but don't worry about things like that. Okay, now I am actually going to add to my palette a little bit of yellow. And this is a cadmium yellow medium, and I'm going to put that there. There you go. And I buy these big tubs now. It seems cheaper in the long run. I'm going to actually use a rake brush. I got a rake brush. You know about rake brushes, it's just percentage of those hairs are longer than the other, so it's good for doing furs and stuff like that. So I'm getting a little bit of my medium mix formula now. I'm thinning this down slightly, so I need this to run a bit. I'm going to add a little bit of white to it, because I'm looking at these heads of corn and stuff. Let's put a touch of orange to it. Let's get a little bit of orange to it. Alright. Looks okay. Now let's have a look, see what we can do. So I might have to get in the way of one of the cameras, but I need to sit. I need to sit over here now. Am I okay? I'm just about to see my head in some of them. So I'm just gonna very lightly drag in some corn like this. Get my little dipper marks. Push up a little bit. You can pull up a bit like this. What's happening is that because we put that darker colour on, we can lift through some of these heads of corn like this and leave a little pocket here and there, and we can separate. Don't worry about going over your tree, we can sort that out. Leave, now let me show you what I mean. So I've done a little row there, so I'm leaving a little gap. I'm not going straight over that, I'm leaving a little gap and I'm going in front and I'm pulling over it like that. So it looks as if there's more there than what there is. I hope you're getting that, because this corner of the painting is quite bright. A little bit of moisture. If it doesn't run, if it doesn't flow as much as you want, a little bit of moisture. You can pull down a little bit like this if you wanted to. That might help. You can use this that way as well if you wanted to. If you wanted nice longer, like by this tree now, we could use it on an angle like that. So you get a longer type of sheath or whatever they are. There you go. Okay, what I want to do is they are quite, and a bit more white to that. It is quite bright, that's the thing. And there's fields like this around where I live, and sometimes you got fields just yellow. They just look so yellow. There you go. We'll leave that side for the moment and let's go on to this side. Now this corner is quite orange, whereas this corner is very yellow. So we'll bring this down. We'll develop that look of corn to this side. Keep loading this brush, it's important. There's a little bit of a lip there. And if it doesn't work, add a little bit of moisture. Notice I don't go straight in, I just touch the bristles. Lift. Another tuft here. Leave that gap there, a nice bit of black there. Leave that black there. Bring this in. Now these are going longer here now. We've got a little bit of a bank in here, so we can go into some sappy green now. Happy sappy green. Just mix what you've got on your brush into that. I'm just going to lighten it up a touch. And just bring a bit of sappy green down there. And don't worry, grass grows everywhere. It grows anywhere it wants. It doesn't conform. Blades of grass aren't always straight, are they? They're not always like this. So that they can go anywhere they want. So just, and this is all going to merge together. So bring it in a bit like that. And bring a bit of that Ochre's green to it as well. Just on the brush, just change the flavour up a touch. Maneuver it about. We can play around with that later on. A bit more detail in here and there. You can see it starting to develop that look. So let's bring a bit of this yellow. Let's bring a bit of that yellow to this sappy green. And let's bring this green flecks in now. Just using the same brush in exactly the same way. Just bring this, develop this green. Not going to see much detail down there, so it doesn't matter. Letting some of that undercolour show through. Just pull up a bit like that. Just let the brush do the work. There should be enough paint on the brush just to do this little bit of highlighting work here. And go back into our sappy green. Let's make it a little bit yellower, because that looks quite yellowy there, and we got tufts of grass coming round. Yeah, like this. You're not going to get instant effects with this, because this is a layer building process. You need to think in layers, and you constantly think in layers.
Hey, welcome, thanks for stopping by. It's time to learn with our friend Clive. So grab your brush, have a great time. And don't forget to click subscribe. Visit clive5art.co.uk.
Okay, so let's go a bit back into this yellow. I'm not washing my brush, I'm just picking up a bit of that yellow. Just look at a tint of green on my brush, but we're going to bring in some more. Grass here now. This is shallower here, so it looks as if it's coming more into the banking type of thing. This is the roadside, so let's get some tufts in there. I'll just keep building and building and building in layers. If you go a bit lighter in some places, don't worry too much about it. This is a road, this is the side of a road, so there's going to be short grass like that in areas, but there's also going to be long grass in areas, and we can put some more details into this in a second, but I'm just establishing some shapes, some grassy looking shapes. So it's all we're trying to do is keep pockets of that undercolour in place as well. I'm just mixing up another quick batch of that paint, and as I told you, you can use this brush now on the edge like this if you want to pull in some longer blades. Too overloaded. Don't worry, we'll spread that through. Just give ourselves a highlight there. Don't worry. We'll go in with the script line in a minute and do that. And let's just bring a little bit of colour in here, a bit of colour difference in here. Just lift up a little bit of red here. Go back into that orange colour, and then just darken down this area a bit. Go back in there in a second. Okay, I'm putting that brush in the water, and I'm going to concentrate on my road. So I'm going to pick up, I got my little shader brush. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of VANDYKE brown, and now I'm just going to go under the edge. I don't want it too runny. I'm going to go under this edge here like this. And I'm going to shade in with a little bit of VANDYKE brown. Bring that across like that. Bit of raw sienna. Let me just grab some kitchen roll. Bit of raw sienna. Dirty up this path a bit. I'm going to bring a touch of white to my brush now, and I'm going to bring that in. Just a touch of white on my brush. Back into that VANDYKE brown there. And we've got a bit of a lighter area here. Touch of moisture. Let's have a look. We've got a bit of a couple of lines coming in there. And what we can do is pull them through like that. Let's get a bit more raw sienna, a bit of VANDYKE brown. Quite dark under this edge here, so let's get a little bit of black to that. Let's just put a little bit of shadow then. Along this edge here like that. Don't be afraid to use black. Never be afraid to use black. Some people say, oh, you should never use black in the painting, but I've never been fearful of black. Leonardo da Vinci said that you should always start with a grey what do they call it? Ground, because because everything in life is dark. That's what he said. That's what he said. Always start with a grey background because everything in life is dark. Let's bring in some shadows in like this. Now we're starting to develop. That's lovely. We're starting to develop this little. Let's just darken this edge down there now. Let's put a little bit of a. Let's just darken that off down there like that. Only a touch of black maybe, just to. Maybe fading away into the distance. Major disaster, no! Don't worry about it, it's okay. That's fine, we'll work around that one. Jason, you've given me a headache. Okay, let's go back now into some raw sienna. And again, let's flick a couple of, let's put a bit of white to that. I just want to pick up a few the spots here and there, just like there's little bits of gravel and stuff on the ground. It's a good best way of doing gravel instead of going round everywhere with a little detail brush. And if you're very quick, you can just get rid of the ones you don't want, like that. Okay. Again, now a detail brush. Where's my detail brush? VANDYKE brown. Go through the VANDYKE brown. There you go. And then twist your brush straight through a bit of white. And let's put some stones here and there. There you go. Too much white on your brush. Don't put too much white on your brush, but it does work. A couple of blacks. Just a couple of little marks here and there like that. As if it's a gravelly path. There we are. That'll do for the moment. Starting to come together now. Now, let's get our brush that we put the trees on again. So we had that green. Let's add a little bit more white to that green mix again now. So let's, what do we have? Burnt umber, a bit of VANDYKE brown. Let's mix a bit of that together. What else did I say? Hooker's green. We need some more Hooker's green. A bit of Hooker's green, that's better. A bit of DIAZ purple and some white. That's about where we were. A bit more white now then. Taking the excess off my brush, tapping in. Taking the excess off my brush, tapping in. Okay. And then go back. Don't worry about them trees now. We've done our work on those trees. Is it a little bit brighter? It is. Let's just check on this tree. Yes, it's just a touch brighter. We need to go a little bit brighter than that. Well, there you go. And let's concentrate on this section of the tree now. Don't kill all those darks. Don't kill. Oh, you've already put 2 coats of paint on here now. So think about form now. Start thinking about this tree. Just think how this tree is starting to pick up the light. Don't worry, you've got your dark in place and you've got your first highlight. So try not to damage what you've already done. It's very difficult to overdo this. You can't afford to overdo this. Very, very light touch. That's all I can suggest. Very, very light touch. This will get done as quick as you think. Now I tell you, you wouldn't realise how quick you can get this done. You're going to be prone to overdo this highlighting. You can't. You've got to be very, very delicate with this type of highlighting effect with these trees. And this is the best way that I found to do a tree in acrylics. It does take a little bit of time, but once you've mastered this, you'll wonder why you ever struggled and worried on how to paint trees. And then we're going into this manger tree now. We've got a nice bit of front section there, and that's going to come down in there like that, and he's coming down, and he's around this area. Think of layers like we did with the ground. Think of the form of the shape of this tree. That's important. Leave some darks in place. That's important again. Think of where the light is going to hit. There we go. Think of where this light is hitting this tree. Remember I showed you can sharpen this to a point, and that's where that comes in handy. So when we do little areas like this. Just picking up a little bit of light there on the base of that, then that was a bit lighter there. It's quite dark here, but there's a little bit of a bunch coming out there like that, look. And all that's in shadow. So the birds are going to have somewhere to sleep, haven't they? So this is quite a thick old tree. Don't know what tree this is. And bring that shape. Think of shape and form. Build and build and build this pattern. Try not to kill all those darks. Now I want you to watch this as it dries. It's going to get a lot darker, and this is why I struggle with grasses and trees and things. It's because I got a job to see the different tones in those trees. Now what I'm going to do before I'm going to let this dry with the hairdryer, and then I'm going to let it stand for 5 minutes because I want it to darken up. Before I do that, I'm going to go into a bit more yellow. I'm going to bring in a bit of yellow there, and I'm bringing a bit of white to that with my script lining brush. I'm going to get a nice sharp point. I want this to flow, and then I'm just going to go into individual ones now. Individual. Maybe if a couple of them are thicker, it doesn't matter. You can go up or you can go down. I'm going down because it's easier for me. Just the way I'm sitting. Don't forget, the further back they go, the smaller they are. No point doing them all the same size. Bring a couple of them down. We've got a couple of hiccups there, here and there, doesn't matter. Get a brush. just picking up an ordinary short flat. I'm just going to scrub a couple of them through like that. Don't worry, there is a couple of darker spots, it doesn't matter. And we can build that up again in a minute. And while we're at it, I don't like this. This is a new strip liner brush, and I really haven't got friendly with it yet. Let's put some ones in here like that. You need to make friends with your brush, because if they don't like you, they're not going to work for you. And I've had a few brushes that they got up and run out of the studio because they don't like me. It's all about detailing, and there's a lot of detail in this. I'm trying. I could spend literally hours and hours and hours on this, and I've given up thinking about how long this lesson actually is at the moment. But just put a couple of lighter marks here and there like that. See what happens? That's because I put, it's a bit too much. I went into it's too fluid, too runny. But what we can do with that, so something you can't do with oils, is I can get rid of the tissue paper and I can just wipe that away, and then I can paint over it again. So, you know, if you make a mistake like that, if you, oh no, get a bit of tissue paper, wipe it off, because the underlying layer is dry, and then you can get away with it. There you go. And let's just get a couple of little lines like this. Let me show you a trick. Where's my fan brush? Let me show you a trick. Okay, so let's get this like that. Get a little bit of that white and yellow mix, and then just this is our grass area here. Tufts of grass, there we are. Okay. I'll do a bit by ear as well, I'll show you now. Let's put a bit, let's do this by ear as well. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to dry this off in a second, and then I'll show you a neat little trick as well then. Let's get a that should be enough. I'm going to dry that off now. Okay, so what I want to show you right, I haven't got enough room on my palette. Normally do this on my palette, but I got that bowl again. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get myself a little short flat like that. I'm going to put a hooker's green into my bowl like that. Add a little bit of sap green to it. I'm going to thin that down like a wash, which it is a wash really. There you go, thin that down. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to wash over those light bits. Well, what's going to happen is, because they are lighter, they're going to adopt the green. Now that's a very cool way of doing fur on animals. I do this a lot with pet portraits, and it's a way of painting grass really, and you can play around with that. You can keep some dark patches. You can add a touch of black to that now. Bring a bit of black into there, a bit more water, change that colour, and then you can put a wash of darker colour in. It's like a glaze then. That's all I can say. It's like a glaze really. You can darken up certain areas of your painting like this. And if you get a blending brush, you can just blend that in. And all it does, it just gives that extra bit of control. I'm talking with a brush in my mouth. Gives you that extra bit of control over your colours. And you can do the same thing with any colour. You certainly can. So I'm just going to clean that out. Right. And again, wiping my brush, I'm going to go into a little bit of that raw umber and a bit of orange, a bit of flow medium, make it into a thin wash. And now I'm just going to go over a couple of these areas here like this. Just tonal wash them down like that. A little bit of difference. And brush that in like that. You can get all these different types of colours without working too hard, and that's a cool thing with acrylics. And then we can dry that off a little bit quick. Because it's a thin wash, you can actually get a light there, I think. Because it's a thin wash, it'll dry pretty quick. But what you're going to do with this, you've got to be careful that you don't build these layers up too quick. Because what you're going to do is you're going to, because the acrylic paint dries by forming a skin, it dries by forming a skin over it like that. And what's going to happen is it's not underlining, the underlining part of the paint is not dry. So if you're a bit too quick with the paint, you can let what they call paint lift. You can actually peel the paint up off the surface. And if you don't know what you're doing, that can happen. So if you find that the paint is lifting, that's all it is, that you haven't dried it enough. And then let's put some shadows in. Same thing with it, just a touch of black. We'll just put in some shadows in like this, exactly the same way. Now putting darker areas there is automatically going to lighten the lighter areas. So if you darken off an area, it's going to make your lighter areas look lighter. And if you lighten an area, it's going to make your darker areas look darker. It's as easy as that, really. And let's put a shadow in. Put a shadow in coming off here, because we've got some light coming across, so that's going to cast a shadow across there like that. I'm going to strengthen those trees up. Again, you can just tap it like that if you wanted to. Just looks as if there's a little bit of a shadow being cast across the road or track, and then let's put some other shadows in being cast from these bushes and trees, bushes here and grass, I should say, not bushes. They're not bushes. Just put a couple of little areas like that. Just blend them in. Just moisten the brush. Just put a couple of shadow areas in there like that, like that. There you go. And if you wanted to, you could darken a whole area with just a little bit of a black wash like this. There's some shadows under these longer bits of grass. Be selective with this. You've got to be working quick, otherwise it'll dry on you and leave horrible marks, and that's not what you want. So we're going to put a little bit of a shadow being cast just lightly across the tops of those bits of corn. Now before we do anything further, I'm going to go back into my detail brush. I'm going to bring a bit of black, but I'm going to bring a bit of VANDYKE brown to it. A little bit of touch of DIAZ and purple. Maybe a little bit of burnt umber as well. Oop. Let's chuck it in. And let's get these trees more defined. They're going to be lighter on the front than what they are on the back. It's going to be quite dark. And it's going to be lighter on the front. Now what we're going to do is, if we get a little bit of light, a little bit of white, a little touch, a little blue, and just down the back edge of this tree, like that, and down the front edge of this tree. The light is going to be hitting the front, but it's also going to have a little bit of light just coming off the very back, because it's lit from the side. So you've got to have a little tiny little glow there like that, but you don't want a lot, just enough to catch that eye. And then let's strengthen up a couple of branches. We'll put some more branches and things in later on. Well, let's just strengthen that up, and then we can come in, we can tighten that up later. Now this tree, this side of the trees, that's going to be dark in there, a little bit darker there, and then it's dark, really dark there. Not so dark there. So I'm just lifting the brush off, allowing some of that whiter paint to come through. Just shows a little bit of difference there. And again, down here. And again down here. Strengthening up those trees. That'll do. It's looking good. Now what we could do now is get this brush again, and let's have a look. That road looks a little bit lighter there, so let's get this colour. Let's mix a wash of that. Let's just bring a little bit of a wash across there, like that. Let's just lighten that up a touch. I'm not too happy with that. Let's just blend that in. And let's just build this road up a touch here. That's going to come around more of an arc, so we need to get a bit of green in there, don't we? A bit of lighter green. Let's just get this to look as if it is going into the distance. I've got an idea that Jason is going to like in a minute. Let's just let that dry a second. It just looks as if it's going away there. Let's put a bit of this area can be in shadow, so I'm just darkening that one side off. just changing between colours, just looking at where the shadows are, a couple of little texture marks here and there, and just there's a lot of detail that can be put into this painting. I'm just trying to get the shape of that road. There you go. It's looking pretty good so far. Okay, let's get a bit of that green. Back into the rake brush, a little bit of this yellow, a little bit of that green. Let's play around a little bit a minute, because if I talk too much sometimes I make so many mistakes, and I'm just very lightly going in, just hardly touching the canvas, and I'm just pulling. Imagine this brush has got so many hairs there, and it's like having all hundreds, not well, I don't know, 30 little strip liner brushes together. You've got to keep constantly loading in just to get the type of detail we're looking for. Constantly.
Hey, welcome, thanks for stopping by. It's time to learn with our friend Clive. So grab your brush, have a great time. And don't forget to click subscribe. Visit clive5art.co.uk.
You've got a lot more time than I have. I'm trying to give this as much of attention as I possibly can, and I'm going to be way over what I estimated this lesson would be, but it doesn't matter, because I want it to be as close to the brief as I can, and I want to show that depth of colour at the same time. So I'm just going to put my brush down there. Now, Jason, you said you wanted to paint humans. Now, I've been playing around with the idea for quite a long time, and I come up with I got little tracings like this. I don't know if you can see, but I draw the same thing over and over and over at different sizes, because sometimes I can just trace. It's easier, and I can actually pick the size of the person I want. So if I wanted him in the front of the painting, I could put him that size, but the further he goes away, the smaller he becomes. But just for you today, I'm gonna put that there as a reference, because I can't remember how I drew him, and I'm gonna get myself a little detail brush like this. Let me get a smaller detail brush. I'll do. I'm just gonna go black. Just gonna go black. Just gonna go in a little bit of black. Just go in a little bit of black, and I got to think of it, of his size now. Let's put his head there first. Let's put a little head. and you've got to think of a little carrot. Think of a little carrot, you know, a little carrot, a little arm like that, I'll do, and the other arm comes out a bit like that. Does that look like, no, that's okay, that looks in perspective, doesn't it? That'll be alright. Put a we put a bit of colour in him in a second. How's that look? Is he too small? Maybe he could be a bit bigger. Let's give him a red. Jacket like that. Let's give him some. Let's give him some brown trousers. Put a bit of white down on the tip of our brushes, just grab a little bit of light zinging down him. Let's get a brush and bit of a shadow. Looks like me taking my dog for a walk. Blend that in. Let's put a bit of brown on our dog. There you go. Do. How's that look? How's that look? Yes, I like. Okay, you got a lot more time than I have. You can play around with that a little bit. Let's get a little bit of a. I got some spots on my canvas, so let's turn them into birds. Bit of white. It's like a bat. I don't like that one. I don't like that one either. There we are. Let's get rid of them. Let's try again. That's better. If first you don't succeed, a few more in. Yeah. It all flying around the corn. I'll tell you what we've got to do. We've got to get rid of that white mark there. Now, before we do anything else, let's go back onto our green. There's my scrubby brush, and let's add a little bit more white now to that green mix. And let's put the highlights. It's too light. Too much light. Darken it down. Gotta be very careful with these highlights, because if you get the colour wrong, that's better. And I do struggle. I keep saying I really do struggle with highlights. So this is the brighter light to green. And again, build the shapes, think of shapes as you do this. This is going to be quite bright there. And I'm just going to go into a little bit of lighter green now. I am going to sparkle this up a bit now. And I'm very lightly, selectively touching parts of this tree now, just for the final highlight. And I quite enjoyed this challenge. And I can carry on, I can work on this for hours and hours and hours. And I put that little man in there for you, Jason, because I was watching a video of you doing the sunset, and you said you wanted to do some figures and things, so I thought, oh, I'll put that in. That's you, that is, walking into the distance. There you go. Said he's a sloppy. He's a sloppy master. I'm quite a loose master. You've got to be loose when you paint with acrylics. But you got to be sloppy, not slack. That's right. You said when it's slack. You got to be slack. Got to be slack. Be painting with oils. You've got to be loose when you're doing this. Not too loose. Picking up those highlights now on the trees. And don't forget, as I said, it dries much darker. You'll be surprised how this will dry. So don't overdo it. You can always add a little bit more. You cannot take anything away. And that's a fact. Right, before we do anything else, where's my script liner brush? I'm going to go into a little bit of this brown purpley type of colour. And let's put a few twigs here and there. Sometimes just allow the brush just to do what it wants, and something you'd be surprised the effects you can get. Yes. There you go. Let's take the edge down the back edge of that tree now, like that. And in there. Get my little shading brush. And I'm just going to pull it around like that. Perfume. We did say we were going to put a fence post, didn't we? Down. So I would say, what's he, about 5 foot there, maybe? So a fence post would be about so high there. And then we'd have another one there. Now where I live, some of these types of posts in the fields are just bits of wood. They're not square or nothing, they're just like branches, you know, big thick branches there. And what we can do now is, tell you what we could do. Let's get, where's that? Well, I just chucked it back in the water. Let me try that off. And let's put a rickety old fence. Like that. And that could actually go down. Into the distance. That'll be alright. Let's get a bit of black now. I want this to be in shadow, but I want the front edge of that post to look like as if it's just catching a bit of light. So most of this is going to be I could put a chain link fence on this, but I'm not going to. Yeah, just to show you a couple of different ideas what you can do with acrylics. That's all it is in this exercise. I'm going to go back into a little bit of that black mix and shading brush. Bit of a shadow there, like that. Can wash our brush. What else can we do? I'm enjoying this, Jason. Let's get a bit of white and just go like that. Couple of jet streams. People are going on holiday. There you go. To make it look a little bit more like that, and let's get a little bit of on your brush, just pick up a couple of light spots like that, and wow, I don't know, I think we just about got a finished painting. What do you think? I think we have. So I tell you what we can do, let's just finish off. Please like, comment and subscribe. That's what I like to say at this particular point. And I have enjoyed this. Let's put a little bit of shadow. Let's put in a bit of black. I have enjoyed this lesson, and you can paint. You can carry on with this for hours and hours and hours. And I haven't got hours and hours because I've spent hours and hours enough. But I think what I can do today now is get my script liner brush, get myself a little bit of black. And I'm going to just paint, sign my name with a bit of black. Is that white? Sign my name with a bit of black paint in this corner. There you are. And I think that's just about what we call a finished painting. So we started with the painting, the photograph that Jason sent me, and thank you very much, Jason. You have challenged me today, and for me to actually bring this painting to life, which is good, in acrylics, and I've added a few different elements just for a bit of fun. A couple of things could be improved on. I could make them a bit bigger, but and there's you walking a dog. I don't know if we've got one, but I have. And yeah, it was just a basic painting. I quite enjoyed that in acrylics, and if I had a little bit more time, this type of painting I would give myself best part of a week, to be honest, to get it right. But because this is a YouTube video, I'm quite happy to let this go like that. So we put some gravel down, we've done some nice grasses and some nice trees. So thank you very much for joining me in the studio today for this collaboration with Jason Bowen. Please go and check his channel out. And if you like what you've seen today, please press the iCards. That'll take you into some more playlists. Please pop along to www.clive5art.co.uk for my playlists and my mediums and etc, etc. So have a good day, good week, a good month, a good year, because I don't know exactly when you're going to be watching this. God bless, and I will see you on the next lesson. Nice.
Hey, welcome, thanks for stopping by. It's time to learn with our friend Clive. So grab your brush, have a great time. And don't forget to click subscribe. visit clive5art.co.uk.